I remember the population being 3,000.
And as you come in Gilroy, there was a big sign, Gilroy, home of the prunes. Because this was the best prunes here, better than San Jose because of the climate.
We had farmland around all the residential districts.
When we moved to Miller Avenue, there was cherry orchards.
Prince Valley was a dividing line. Anything west of Prince Valley was county. And right across the street were acres and acres and acres of prunes. At Miller was all cherry orchards. So we lived in the city, but the country was right there.
I loved growing up in Gilroy. There was so much family and friends. It was a time when everybody would visit everybody.
Looking back, I feel now we were very protected. The school system, police department, parents, everybody knew everybody, so.
We could ride our bikes way far and be gone a long time. People really didn't lock their doors too much.
Older people say, just be home for dinner. And that's the way it was.
We didn't realize at the time how good we had it. We thought there were restrictions or limits, but they were actually all good for us.
I remember you knew everybody. Everybody knew everyone and was there to help everyone.
It was a very good feeling.
My name's Xavier Sanchez, and I was born in San Fernando, California, December the 9th, 1926.
My given name is Elizabeth Teresa Peruca, but my parents have always called me Betty. And I was born in 1942 at Wheeler Hospital.
My name is Ronald Howson. I was born in Gilroy in 1942.
My name is Carolyn Tognetti. I was born in Gilroy at the old Wheeler Hospital on 5th Street on February 8th, 1946.
Loretta, Piedmont, Ventura. I was born here at the Wheeler Hospital on 5th Street, May 28, 1946.
Larry Scettrini, born on August 16, 1949 at Wheeler Hospital in Gilroy.
My dad was from Mexico, Guanajuato. That's where he was born. In those days, everybody carried guns. There were revolution times in Mexico. My grandfather says, I'm going back to the United States. So his aunt, the one that raised him up there, says, you're not gonna leave Domingo. That was my dad's name. So you're not gonna leave Domingo here anymore. He's growing up, he says, I'm an old lady now. I can't take care of him. He says, so you're gonna have to take him. He said, okay. In those days, they gave you the tickets free. The company was giving it. They wanted people here. You cross, he says, when you cross Texas, you pay 3 cents and you come across. He came in this country in 1918. He was 15 years old. He could speak, I believe, 6 languages. English, he wrote it, everything, German, Japanese, Chinese, Italian, Portuguese. He could speak all those languages. And he was only 15 years old. So anyway, he came, that's where he started working. Till finally, they became his brother-in-law. He told him, why don't you guys go to California? It's beautiful over there. They came to Los Angeles, that's how they came into California. Then they moved to Santa Paula. There's where he met my mother. My dad was 18, not quite 18. My mother was 18. So my grandfather had to go sign for my dad because he was a minor. In 1939, the reason we came into Gilroy, or this area, there was a big strike in Southern California, the biggest in the country. 50,000 Mexicans on strike from Ventura County to San Diego. So he started checking around. Well, in the winter, they prune. They do pruning here. He says, I'll look for somebody. W.B. Stewart, he says, he's got a lot of ranches. Try him. He went there. Yeah, he says, you want to work by the month? Whatever, but I need a house. No, I'll give you a house. He said, I'm going to give you $85 a month. So that's when we stayed in front of the cemetery. There was a prune orchard there. It belonged to that W.B. Stewart. So he gave us a main house under a big tree. That was a nice home.
My father's from northern Italy, and my mother is from Meridian, Sacramento area. They met at a family gathering in Gilroy. He had gone to Southern California, but he would make trips up north delivering lemons and oranges and that kind of thing. And my grandparents had a dairy, my mom's parents, in Gilroy. They had made a connection through friends. He was 9 years older than her. My Aunt Celeste, which she did not like to do this, but she had to be the chaperone in the back seat when they went on a date. They married when she was 19 and settled in Gilroy. My dad had a business. It was a scrapyard, machinery and salvage company. He had it for years. And they bought into Oakdale Park. It's on Watsonville Road. It's a family-run picnic, swimming, camping, and they made a clubhouse restaurant. They had it for 20 years, from 1950 to 1970. And my mother, she pretty much ran it. And then when my dad closed machinery and salvage, he would come up and help in the evening. She bartended, she cooked. There was always a snack bar. It sold hot dogs, hamburgers, candies, milkshakes, and stuff, through the day. I even had my own drink that I made up, Bette Special. It was a 7-Up float with cherry juice. I was 8 years old and my sister was 7. We basically grew up at the park. Those were where all of our years were spent, basically.
My mother was a Gilroyan, and my father was an immigrant from England. They were both Gilroy High School, so I imagine that was how they met. My father was a builder, and my mother was a homemaker. My father also had what would be equivalent to the Home Depot now. He had a lumber yard, a hardware store, and he was a builder and ready-mix concrete and a gravel quarry. And in 42, there was quite a war panic that we were going to be attacked on the West Coast. So my father was building military installations from Cambria all the way to Santa Cruz, Fort Ord in particular. A lot of that nice houses on the west side of Prince Valley, I think every one of them was my father built. And they built Dowdy between 6th and 7th also. By the time I came along, they were pretty much out of house building and doing industrial buildings. My first home was adjacent to where I live now on the corner of 5th and Prince Valley. I have 2 older sisters, Marcia and Roberta. One well-known in Gilroy, she was the first woman mayor, and she was mayor twice.
My mom was born here. Her parents were born in Italy, but she was born here. Her parents met here. And then my father was born in Kansas, and they came here when he was 3. The families were Italian, the Rizzis and the Shabataris. My mother's maiden name was Shabatari. When my mom was about 11, her parents moved to San Jose. Her father had gone into opening a bar with a cousin. One Memorial Day, when my mom was about 16, they went to the cemetery and my dad was there with his mother. So my mom always told the story they met in the St. Mary's Cemetery in Gilroy. My dad started dating her there, and then they married in 1945, and I was born 10 months later. My father, at the time they met, he was in the banking business, but he had a good friend from high school named Louis DiLorenzo, and Louis had a family grocery store across the street from the cannery, the old Felice and Pirelli cannery on Lewis Street. It was around the time of the end of the war, and he was getting busy and he needed a partner. So he asked my dad to be a partner in the grocery store business. I think it was called Gilroy Foods Market. And then they had the opportunity together to purchase a beer distributorship called Lucky Lager Beer. At the time, it was a popular beer.
My father's family had their house in a little farm on the end of Lewis Street. It was a dead-end street. It was sort of semi-country, but close enough you could walk to town. My mother lived in Hollister and moved to Gilroy. Where Target is now is where her family's little farm was. So they kind of grew up and knew each other. Well, my dad was 35 when they got married. I had the older parents among all my friends. My mom worked in the cannery. At that time, women, if they did work, it was in the cannery and it was like part-time or seasonal. My father owned the garbage company at one time. He ended up selling it because he hurt his back. So then he went to work for the city of Gilroy. And then he had 2.5 acres of property that he would do cucumbers or zinnia flowers. And as kids growing up, we would help.
My mom was originally from Kansas, Topeka. Came out in the 30s when she was like a child. It was right out of the Grapes of Wrath, the jalopy, and the one thing, common denominator with that family, the Dillon family, was they were very poor, and they stayed poor forever. And my dad was born in San Jose, but his dad was from Switzerland. So I'm a Swiss American. Well, we lived on Rosanna Street at first, that big white Italianate near 5th. But we moved out to Prunedale Avenue shortly thereafter, right across the street from my grandfather's dairy, and that's where my dad worked. So he had a pretty short commute. He could walk to work. So in our neighborhood on Prunedale Avenue was all Mexican except for me. So we had the Sotelos, the Guevaras, the Vasquez. So I tried to fit in with the Mexican crowd.
So my folks believed we should all learn to work at a young age.
Everybody worked. Everybody worked. The farm boys obviously worked. They worked really hard.
I was around 7 or 8. I had driven the tractor around for my dad and my uncle while they fed the cows. So they put me in this chair, put it in gear, so I couldn't reach the pedals. And then I would drive while they would go back on the trailer and distribute the hay. And then my uncle would hop up there and get it out of gear if he needed to stop. And this is not just me, I think it's all farm kids start the same age. If you're big enough to do it, you can start your career, your farm career.
And everybody else either cut lawns or cut apricots.
The great old apricot, yeah.
To cut apricots. Neither one to say I was good, but I was always fast.
The apricots have to be cut in those days manually, split in half, and laid on drying trays.
My Aunt Rita would pick Carolyn, my girlfriend that lived on Walnut Lane, and me up at 7 in the morning. We'd cut apricots till 3 or 4.
I was 14 and I got a job at Robert's department store in downtown Gilroy, right next to the drugstore. I learned how to, work with people, and then a job opening came up at Gilroy Motor Company. Mr. Humbarger was the owner.
We always had jobs, raking leaves, sweeping the dance floor, sorting bottles. As we got older, we watched the gate, took the money. Then we worked the check room for the swimming pool, became lifeguard on up as our years progressed, and then became a waitress in the restaurant.
So by the time I was 10 or 11, I started getting an actual wage. So I worked every day, 7 days a week, and I got $30 a month, about $1 a day.
My mother, she had her own chickens, and he would tell me, go get me this one and that one. I would go and I'd kill them. I'd bring them to her, and she brought them for soup on Sundays. And my grandma would make sweet bread in the oven. We had a wood stove.
Well, we had a lot of lamb because relatives owned the sheep farm. And we didn't eat necessarily all of the rack of lamb and the chops. We ate the tongue and the liver and the shanks and all those things. My father was from England, so they had a lamb-eating culture. So lamb would be my favorite. The other one is she made a heavy noodle with a brown gravy that I remember. I've never seen it made by anybody else. I'd go home with my Italian friends, and the food was very different and much better than in my house. And I remember that my mother was a good cook in her standard way, but I mean, you eat at the Italian's house, it was a whole nother world. You go, whoa, this is all right. And I was very thin. And I remember Mrs. Deffenbaugh, who was really a Pizzoli, she'd say, I never seen a little skinny guy could eat so much.
My her ancestry is Tuscan. She would cook bagna calda. That was a favorite thing, that it's like a Italian fondue made with lots of garlic, olive oil, butter, and anchovies. And then you dipped vegetables, sometimes sliced thin meats and things like that, and lots of good French bread. And you all had to eat it together because the next day you smelled bad. It came out of your pores. And it was a New Year's Day tradition.
She was a basic, fried chicken was good, mashed potatoes. We had some unusual dishes also. We used to have what I call refried mush. Well, it's yesterday's mush, but recooked. Mush is oatmeal.
My mom could make something out of nothing taste good with leftovers. She did stuffed zucchinis that I cannot duplicate. Polenta was one of the favorites with a gravy, and it's usually done with either chicken or rabbit or pheasant. My father was a hunter.
I'd have to say we were guilty of poaching. There was a lot of empty land where Montelli Drive is now. We used to hunt there, sometimes with permission, sometimes not. People were pretty lenient. Most of us had 22 rifles by the time we were 15 or 14.
All my relatives were hunters and fishermen, outdoorsmen. My dad had a gun case with rifles and shotguns and pistols. And he hunted on our farm. He hunted pheasant and stuff right on our pastures. And deer hunting was accessible, but as it became less accessible, it's just too difficult to get where you can hunt.
We would say, let's go hunting birds with a slingshot. I made my own slingshot. The old cars, they had those rubber tubes. Borrow my mother's scissors and make the rubber and make my own. On the side was 10 acres of grapes. So I'd go there, jackrabbits. There was a lot of jackrabbits. I ain't gonna kill a jackrabbit with this, but I says, let's go kill them. Throw them and they would run faster. That's what the fun there was on Saturday and Sunday. First thing, we gotta go to church first. Then we come back and that's what I do.
Being a kid was fun out in the country. Like all the other neighbors were all Mexican. Elias and Manuel and Mario and Jesse. So we had a lot of fun with nothing. We lived in the middle of a vineyard, no toys, just imagination, and we were happy.
We were very creative as young kids and came up with all kinds of fun things to do. We always had a club. We always came up with some club name. Red, White, and Blue Club, or I don't know. We always had a club, and we always did these pretend things, play store, play whatever.
The agricultural districts are right there. They'd flood irrigate, and we used to go play in the mud, my sisters and I. We'd build rafts and go down the river, the Uvis River, during floods. A lot of times we'd build it with my dad's used truck tire tubes and put boards across it and rope, and the raft would break apart and you'd get wet. But one year we made it all the way down to Sargent's, which is way down, that's way down by the balsa. And then you had to walk home wet. It was so cold because it was midwinter.
So we did a lot of playing outside and in each other's yards. We had a swing set. Some of the others had swing sets and jacks and riding bikes.
We used to play hide and seek, jacks, marbles. I remember having little contests, A
lot of tag and hide and seek. Roller skating was a big thing. The old-fashioned roller skates that you had to have a key. You could fit them to your shoe so you could grow into them or whatever.
Those were good years. My sister and I played baseball.
That was my favorite baseball. Boom, home runs. And here go the little kids by.
Baseball, Little League. I was a pitcher. Not particularly successful one, but I really enjoyed it. It's memorable. I remember being, Little League is one of the high points of my life, I remember.
You got a uniform, you got a ballpark with a fence and dugouts, and you were on the radio. It was just like the big leagues. Reverend Whaley was the announcer, and our coach was Dan Matranga with the Elks, and it was another great opportunity to be a kid and really have a spectacular time.
Field hockey, which was big in Gilroy. I did some volleyball, swam. I swam a lot, and then went into Gators after that.
I did after-school sports, volleyball. I did field hockey.
As far as hobbies and stuff, out in the country, all my Mexican friends were very creative, talented. They could draw pictures, they could oil paint, they could make things out of nothing, scooters with wheels and things you could play with. And they spoke 2 languages. I was always amazed that by the time we got to school, they were in the dumb class, somehow. I go, well, these are the guys I play with every day. How come we're not in the same class?
We didn't go to kindergarten because we lived in the country when you didn't have to go to kinder then. And it was Adams School. It was a 2-room schoolhouse for 8 grades. And they had a big divider that came down from the ceiling and divided 4 classes and 4 classes. It was awesome. It was awesome growing up there. We could wear our jeans to school because we played baseball. We went down to the creek on lunch and climbed the big rock. And then I went to Gilroy High for 4 years.
First school was Severance School, I guess, and then Brownell, and I think I was the first 5th grade class that went to Brownell.
The first school was Jordan, and I went kindergarten there, and kindergarten was quite different than, it was mostly like a preschool. We had a lot of painting and coloring, not too much in the way of real learning like they do now. And then right next door was already the junior high, so I didn't have to go far to go to junior high at Brownell. And then to Gilroy High over where the South Valley School is now.
I went to kindergarten to Elliott School, and then 1st grade through 8th grade, St. Mary's. We had the nuns, very strict. But I will say one thing, they taught you very well.
Well, I went to Elliott for kindergarten in 1954. I remember before Elliott, my mom took me to kindergarten before school started. I was really thrilled. The beautiful books they had and all those colors and the toys. I ended up being a lifetime reader.
Jordan School. I used to go there. There was an old bus, but I didn't want to get on the bus. Otherwise, I could have gotten a bus, but no. I would run all the way to school. And Miss Milne was my teacher. She had a 37 Buick, so she would stop most of the time. Come on, get in. Take me to school. That teacher, I adored that teacher. She was so nice. I didn't know my timetables in arithmetic, and I had a hard time, you know. She noticed right away, in about 3-4 days. I picked that up right away. From there on, I loved school.
We used to wait on Prunedale Avenue for the bus. Depending on where you lived, it could be a long ride. So in the morning, I was only 5 miles from school on the correct side of the highway, so I got picked up nearly at the end. But going home at night, I had to go 20 miles up to the top of the mountain, of Pacheco Pass. Pretty precarious. I remember looking out the bus window and these cliffs were pretty steep. And in fact, your bus is your little society. Same people every day. You have your bus friends, people you sit with. Interesting.
There's 2 Gilroy High Schools. There was the one before the one that became the junior high and just knocked down. And I went there my freshman year. And both my sisters went to the old high school.
High school was a fun time for me. My favorite thing to do was cheerleading. I had started that at Brownell.
My favorite subject in high school was speech, Mr. Church, I was scared to death. And he really taught me how to get up and talk. And I was like a junior. And even then, coming from St. Mary's, I was very shy because, believe it or not, but if you talk to a boy, the nuns would have a fit. So I became very shy until maybe my junior year when I got into this speech class and I started to blossom.
I was very self-conscious. I say I was under the rug. Hung around with the girls, had a lot of friends, but stayed in the sports. My only date in high school was graduation. And I know my mom set me up with our lifeguard. So we went to the dance and, went out with everybody else afterwards. Then when I went to Hartnell, I kind of came out of my shell.
The class of '64, we wanted a sneak day. Most of the seniors before us, you got a day off like a Friday. You could go to the beach, and everybody would meet there. And this was the year they said no. Well, we weren't happy with that. And our class president said, we all stick together. We're all going no matter what. And we said, yes, we're all going on a Friday. So we got as far as Brackett's, where Hacienda is now, that Mexican restaurant. There was a house there, Dick Brackett's mom. And our president got out to call the school to tell them we're leaving. And he said, you will lose your scholarships. So 5 of them returned back. At the time, I didn't get it. I didn't like it. But we went and we made headlines because some people drank too much. And there was nothing. It was just, the cops came and shut it down. We were home by 2 p.m, I think. It was a short day.
We were talking to Mr. Orsetti after he retired, and we stopped in Nob Hill, and there's Mr. Orsetti, my 7th grade teacher. We'd stop and chat, and I realized how much respect we had for our teachers and love. We loved our teachers.
The teacher that was Milne, loved that teacher, was so nice to me. She's the one that taught me what little I know.
They put up with us. I didn't behave that well. But they put up with us and guided us to being better adults.
Downtown was vibrant.
And the Main Street had all kinds of shops. Everything was on Main Street, on Monterey.
The Main Street, the town was just up to Hannah.
You could walk into town. I would go to the little, I think it was Jim's Sports Shop that had the little fountain.
And you get those milkshakes with the extra shake. They put them in the big silver things. They pour yours out and you get the rest for a quarter or a nickel, a dime, who knows. Money was no object.
All the markets were downtown, and all the dress stores were downtown, and shoe stores and banks. And even my orthodontist was down there.
And we'd go get an ice cream at Schilling's across the street, and we'd sit in the car and people would walk by and visit. You go to the grocery store, people would talk with you.
Betancourt's Market, that was a major market in town for a long time. It was on 4th and Monterey.
In the years after we stayed, Mr. W.B. Stewart, a millionaire in Gilroy, he was a millionaire, in the dumpster back of the store, picking some rotten apples to take home.
My dad used to shop at Purity Market. Purity Market was that Quonset Hut place with wooden floors. I remember walking around with my mom, picking up bread was like, 19 cents a loaf?
There were pool tables on 4th and also Steinman's on 6th.
I remember Hall's, the 5 and Dime store, Sprouts Ritz, I think that's what it's called, Woolworths.
I remember Carlos Delicatessen. The Matucci's owned that, Rose Matucci.
New Gilroy Bakery, when we got a little bit older, We all went there and got bread and sandwiches. They made it was the only sandwich shop in town. My father built the oven, the bakery oven.
We'd go shopping. J.C. Penney's was there. And one thing about them, they had the wire up above on the ceiling where they would send the money to the office. You know, it'd shoot across. It was something to see.
Our downtown experience was only for once a year. We'd go to Halls for shopping for jeans at J.C. Penney across the street, so for clothes. You get your clothes in August, right, for the next year. So by the time June rolls around, everything's kind of short because you've grown, but the pants have to last all year. Same with the shoes, and we were used to the shoes downtown also. Rizzuto's, Semino's.
Because it was also Highway 101 and it was always very busy. But it was always dangerous because of the amount of traffic. There was parallel parking in those days, and when you opened the driver's door could be ripped off by a truck. In fact, it happened to my mother.
I would go to the Strand Theater.
We did go to the Strand. That was the main form of entertainment.
I used to go to the theater. It was 25 cents, I think, for the show. And it was still prejudice. The Mexicans on the left side and white on the other one. On the bleachers, only white could go, no Mexicans. I was used to where I come from.
We went to the Strand, saw movies at the Strand. They were double features. There's usually a Western and a jungle, or there was some cartoon and the newsreel and all that. But I remember we'd always sit in the very front. And in the jungle ones, there was always a huge snake that came out of a tree. Because of that, I have had a fear of snakes all my life. It's crazy, but I just remember that. It just really frightened me.
My sister took me to see Alice in Wonderland, and it scared me, and I ran out of the theater and walked home.
My first memory of some of the movies at the Strand were, I think, the Shirley Temple movies. I always loved Shirley Temple. As I got a little older, I remember the science fiction, The Blob and War of the Worlds. That one scared me, The War of the Worlds.
The one that came to my mind was The Blob. That one scared me. It was my first horror movie, and I was scared to death. And I think I must have been 10 or 11. You know, it was just big jello moving slow, but it scared me.
And then later, Elvis, and I remember sitting in that audience and we were all screaming our heads off. And he couldn't hear us.
Yeah, the Strand was a lot of fun. Kind of a rarity for country kids to be able to go to the Strand. I remember one time I went, my mom dropped us off, me and Rick Missoni, and we saw 3 Elvis pictures in a row. So the first one, man, that was great. And then the second one said, that's pretty good. By the time the third one rolled around, you go, well, I don't know about this Elvis guy.
I also went to the drive-in theater, and that was out very close to my cousin Barbara Bosco's house. Barbara and I and her sister Geraldine would go out in the field at just the start of that movie, and we would watch the cartoons. We'd lay in the dirt in the rows of the farmland out there, and we'd just, cartoons are pretty easy to follow, I guess.
We spent a lot of time at the drive-in with our family.
Love the drive-in. That's where I saw a couple of movies with my parents. We go to the drive-in with the kids in their pajamas, back seat, front seat, and the old 57 Chevy or whatever we had.
Yeah, and our jammies in the little box that, it hangs out the window.
Yes, that was a lot of fun. That was high school. And sometimes us kids, we'd sneak people in the trunk, and then you let them out, and then we'd watch the movie. And of course, you had to go see who was with who there.
It depends on your age. Your favorite places change. First, it was Glens Creek. Glens Creek is now Silver's Crossing and Christmas Hill Park. That was a big gathering place, and we'd swim there, we'd fish there, we have rock fights there, we have clod fights there. Clod is when you pull a bunch of grass out of the ground and the roots are there, and you You'd heave them, we'd build forts, and we'd heave clods at each other.
Well, we did have clod fights, but also cocoa ball fights. From the oak tree, these round balls fall out. We call them cocoa balls. I don't know what the official title is, but those were good for fighting too. So nobody got hurt, but that's just what kids do.
And Spriggs Lake was that lake you can see on the way up to Mount Madonna. Sprigg was a game warden, an old man too. And he got the state or the county to stock this lake with trout. And only 12 and under could fish it. And we spent a lot of time there. My mother would drop us off there at 7 in the morning, and we'd find our way home. We hitchhike, or some other parent would come to pick up their kid, and we'd get a ride with them.
We went to Oakdale Park a lot with a family. It was a picnic area, had bocce ball courts, which my dad loved to play. And so I think they were run by the Peruca family, so Italians.
Oakdale loved Oakdale. Yes, for your barbecues.
People just came out to Oakdale as families, you know, the Perinos, the Girettis, all those families that we were good friends with.
And they had a big cement open-air dance floor, and they would have bands and different music on. And I remember a lot watching. We all got out there and danced, the kids and whatever.
And there's where I learned to dance. And my Uncle Linton Clute would take us girls, Sandy and I, we were like 12 or 13, and he'd go out and dance with us. Oh, we thought we were the Cats Meow. I remember that.
But I love to watch some of them polka. They did a lot of polka dancing, some of the old timers.
You know, being so involved in Oakdale Park, we had Mondays off, and they would take us to another pool or a beach or somewhere where we could we love the water. We didn't get to have that privilege of just, you know, swimming when we were working, that kind of thing. But they did let us have overnight camps with our girlfriends.
There was also, as we got a little older, there was a place called Uvis Meadows, and it was very near Oakdale.
Uvis Meadows was another. That came later, and I went there maybe in high school.
So you'd pay a few dollars to go use the swimming pool, and the kids would just all hang out there, and all the teenagers.
But it wasn't as cool as Oakdale.
Oakdale had the TV up there in the clubhouse, but we didn't watch TV much because we were always busy. We were always busy at the park.
I think they got one as soon as they kind of came out. It was small, you know, the console ones with a little screen about this big.
Your life depended on your TV repairman, Frank Morazzo, Frank's TV. So if the TV goes out, you're stuck. So Frank shows up with his tubes and his case. He whips that thing around and he starts playing with it. And pretty soon, you're dependent on Frank to get your life back. Get your cartoons and Mickey Mouse Club back in action.
Howdy Doody Time was one of my favorites, and I think Roy Rogers.
We watched all the regular shows, all the westerns, the detective shows, Bonanza, Steve McQueen, Leave It to Beaver. And our favorite, I think, was Disney. Sunday night was Disney night. So you take your bath. Sometimes depending on whether you're first, second, or third, it could be pretty dirty water. There's nothing to complain about. That's how you did it. You took your bath in a tub, and then you got ready for Disney at around 7 or 8, hoping it would be a cartoon. The cartoons were the best from Disney.
It was like in the 50s, maybe late 50s. What happened when you get the television, people start coming over and you're not talking.
I remember the TV was the center of attention.
You're starting to watch the program, and then little by little, nobody's coming over anymore. It really interfered with that social part of people coming to visit. You know, oh, I can't come, this is gonna be on, you know. Lawrence Welk's coming on.
We always had a telephone.
We had one black phone in the house. It was in the hallway in a little section for the phone. It was like a little spot. That's where the phone went.
We had an operator, so we had to lift up the phone and be operator, and you had to know somebody's number, say Vinewood, 2435 or whatever, you know, and
See, Vinewood 842-2866. That was my phone number.
it was a party line. I think we would pick it up if somebody was talking, we had to wait.
We didn't have a party line, but all our rural friends had party lines.
Oh yeah, party line.
Yes, the party line, the famous party line.
And pick it up again, see if they're still home.
You know, when you're a teenager and you've got some lady on the phone gossiping and you want to use it. So finally, when the private lines came, my parents got that.
More when we became teens, the Gilroy boys were kind of lawless, and we had very little control. It was pretty much a car culture. I had a hot rod. We'd race on city streets. Gilroy was fairly unruly in those days.
Well, dragging Maine, that was the thing to do.
Drag Maine.
Dragging Maine all the time.
You would get in the car, my girlfriend Carolyn Huell, Barbalia now, and she'd get her old Merc out, her parents' Merc, and we would go, and you went from Snow White, and you go down First Street, you pass Foster's, and you would go all the way down to Becky's Burger Pit, and that was on 10th, flip a U-ey, and go back to Snow White.
You stopped at different places, and then you'd visit with the friends and hang out at Becky's.
It was really the thing to do. My mom would say, "Where are you guys going?" "Going to Drag Maine, Mom." You know? Oh, okay.
That was the big deal. It was a big thing. That was our social life. It's crazy.
There was a rivalry and maybe a divide between the city boys and the country boys. But there was also a strong friendship. We interchanged back and forth. And I remember the country boys would like to come to town and we would like to go to the country. We had hay rides. So the country people would get these flatbed trucks and put all hay bales all around. And you sit in there and then you get on top of the hay bales and they drive all over town. And the hay would blow up in the air and go down in your shirt. It looked really romantic. Oh, you're sitting with your girlfriend on this hay wagon. But it wasn't, because when the wind came, all that hay went down your back and it got itchy, so it wasn't all that great. And when the country boys came downtown, they liked to go roller skating on sidewalks, because there's no sidewalks in the country. So that was fun. We had these steel skates. They liked to go to the pool hall. For us, we loved to drive tractors. It was a lot of fun for us to drive a tractor and tear up the dirt.
Yeah, I used to drive by then, yeah. Beep to the girls. Yeah, that's big rocks at us, because, you know, I guess a lot of them were their sisters too, I guess. They would throw rocks at us.
We had an annual tomato fight, and it would always happen Halloween. And by that time, the tomatoes had been harvested, but there was still a lot on the vines. And the farm kids had these flatbed trucks. And we'd go load prune boxes full of tomatoes. I mean, lots, like 20 boxes of tomatoes, big ones. And then we'd have a fight, the seniors and the freshmen versus the sophomores and the juniors. And we drive these trucks around town throwing tomatoes at each other.
We threw eggs and tomatoes yeah, I do remember that, but I don't remember the rivalry being between country and town.
And then when we got more unruly, we'd throw them at the teachers' houses. And that got us normally arrested. And nobody got booked. They would just call your parents, and your parents would come get you and take you home, and you never would get a record. Our parents knew the policeman. It was a small rural town, and we behaved in that way.
Okay, then, by that time, I guess I was 15, and my dad working for W.B. Stewart and my older brother. My dad told me, okay, you're gonna go to school? No, I don't wanna go to school. Either you're gonna go to work or you're gonna go to school. One of the two. You're not gonna be fooling around in town. I said, I'll go to work.
I wasn't a very serious student. I was intended to be a blue-collar worker or tradesman, and so I was an industrial arts major. I only went half a year in my senior year, and I had actually walk across the slough and go work at my father's.
I went to Gavilan. I remember driving to Gavilan the first day in my '60 Chevy. And I'm thinking, gosh, I'm in college? What happened? And I ended up getting a master's degree in Spanish from San Jose State. at the same time, I worked at Garcia's Club for 7 years. Garcia's was an eye-opener. In Gilroy, as well as most places, we have two societies, the Spanish-speaking society and the non-Spanish-speaking society. And so over there were a lot of probably what you would call illegals. Now they probably didn't have documentation, but they were living and working in Gilroy, probably in agriculture. And spending time at Garcia's. They had a bar, a restaurant, and a card room. So at the same time, I was going to San Jose State majoring in Spanish. So in the daytime, I was learning book Spanish. At nighttime, I was learning spoken Spanish with all the bad words like cabrón and a la chingada. I was a card dealer, professional gambler.
I went to beauty school right out of high school. At 19 and a half, because Gilroy being a small town, I got a phone call from this lady, Polly Gooley. Her daughters I went to school with. And she said, I heard you got your license. I'm in partnership with Judy Lyons, her sister-in-law, but I'm leaving. And I want to come over and talk to you about you buying me out. I said, I just got out of beauty school. I don't know anything about a business. And my mother is a strong woman. And she looked at me and she said, you can do this.
I went to University of San Francisco, and then after that I went in the military, and I was commissioned as a lieutenant, and I was in the Signal Corps.
I worked at Nautical Foods for 20 years, and I got a lot of help there. They had a lot of Mexican employees who spoke Spanish, so I was able to get a lot of help. Gotta love working in Nob Hill. You're taken seriously as a worker. I worked for Linda Trelut, Michael's sister, in the art department. Graphic art. So they sent me to school, they gave me raises, they enabled me to have a family and health insurance. Very thankful for them.
I worked for quite a few years for WB Stroop when I was 15 years old. So the foreman from Stewart was Moretti. He says, you want to work? Yeah. Okay, so how about it? You're going to work like your brother by the month 65. No. You want to work by the hour? Yeah. Well, the war already. They took all the soldiers, so there was nothing but old people left and kids like me. I used to work all year around. I was making more money than my dad and my brother together.
When I graduated Hartnell, I graduated on a Friday night, and Art Bannister had hired me to work at Salinas Valley Savings, and I went to work on that Monday. And I worked for him for 17 years. And then I quit when I was like 2 weeks from delivering my first child. Then I was home for about 12 years. Then Wayne Carlson kind of commissioned me to work for him when he went into real estate. I ended up working 17 years for Wayne.
My husband's family was in farming. I was not a farmer's daughter, but married a farmer's son, and he became a farmer as well. And now I'm a farmer's mother and a farmer's grandmother. So farming became very important to me. My husband got the bright idea one day that we should open a cherry stand. He was working with Don Christopher. Don had cherries, so he said, why don't we open a cherry stand, Don? And I did that in 1972 and did that for quite a number of years. And just so happened Don Christopher had the adjacent property. Garlic Festival started, it got popular, and we decided to build a big year-round fruit stand called Garlic World. In looking back at my life, I'd like to tell them to realize that life is pretty short and make the most of their life. Get passionate about something, and then do something about it, Don't be afraid. Get out there and make a change and have fun. Just have fun in this world.
Take their tablet away, kick them out of the house and say, I don't want to see you till 5 o'clock.
Go to school. There's no future without the school, mainly in these days. You ain't got no school, you ain't got nobody. Go as far as you can go.
I tell my grandkids and all, just do your best and Be kind, be a good person, and help people when you can.
My advice to the people coming up is to be kind to one another. I think there is so much division in this country. My feeling about the Bible, it's love and only love, and to love one another. And some of these issues that have come before us, I think it's a test to see how much we can love one another.
I don't know about advice, but I listen to kids today. I have a lot of faith and hope in our young people, because our old people seem to be developing bad habits. Advice to young people is expect a lot of change. Nothing's permanent. Hope for change for the good.